So today we're going to start on a new pattern. It's made out of a panel. It's one that I designed recently. These are not exactly the colors, but this is what the pattern panel will, the gist of it. Let's put it like that. This is the gist of what it will look like. So it's going to be a very simple pattern. It's not anything that's going to need to be fancy sewed. This is straight line cutting, straight seam piecing, blocks, rectangles, no half square triangles or flying geese or anything like that. No snowball corners, just kind of basic beginner construction. So anybody should be able to do this. Okay, you're going to need 8 fabrics for the basic quilt itself. Then you'll need more fabrics for the backing and the binding. Okay, this is the panel that I've chosen. It's a sunflower. I don't know if this panel is available anymore. I bought it from a lady right outside of Canton, Texas, I believe it was. I don't know if she's still there, but boy, she was awesome. It's Sunflower Dreamscapes by Ira Kennedy. It's a Moda fabric. And it's just a bunch of sunflowers. So we're just going to cut this panel up into strips. And then we're gonna just put it back with strips, okay? I'm gonna use this navy here for my stripes in between and my first border. And then I'm gonna use a combination of these next. I don't know if I'll use these 4 here or these 4 here. I haven't determined yet about that. If I'm gonna wanna go with a really light colored border or a dark colored border. I haven't decided. So that will probably be one of the last decisions I make. And this is also one I kind of like too. I use this one as a spare because I'm not sure when I go to cut these, I may feel like these two are too close together. So I may drop this one out and use this one here in its place to add a little more variety. These are fat quarters here. This is just some extra yardage I had that I'm trying to use some of my scraps up. But the pattern tells you how much of everything you need. And you know, here at Be Yourself Quilting, we always want you to be yourself and choose your own colors. The pattern allows for it to be a little shorter than a regular panel and a little narrower. That way, if your panel is a little shorter or a little narrower, you will not have to worry about not having a panel quite large enough. And you can do this with any panel. You can do it with this kind of panel, but you can do it with a bear or a wolf or a Santa Claus, a night scene, a church. I don't know, panels are endless. I've seen some with like old cars, Route 66. I've seen a lot of John Deere things lately, a lot of bees, flowers. I mean, it's endless. This can be done with anything. So don't feel like, oh, well, I don't have flowers, I can't do that. This might be a way to use up some of your panels that you bought, and you just really don't want to be involved in a tremendous amount of time. Now, guys, I'm going to time this one because I think this quilt's going to go together really fast. So I'm going to keep a time sheet beside me, and I'm going to put down every time I start and stop. That way, I can tell y'all in the end how long it took me. I'm not a fast sewer. I am a pinner when I need to pin. I am definitely an ironer between every step. So that's going to take me longer. And I'm going to include all those times together, okay? So I'm going to give you a start finish. I really think it's going to go together quick. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all the pieces. And then we'll go to the sewing machine and get to putting it together because it's not going to really take that long. Okay, I'll see y'all back here in just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to jump in here real quick before I finish this. Cutting this section. So just a little tip here. I started in the center. I measured to the center of my panel, and then I put my ruler down in the middle of what the width of my fabric needed to be, and I cut 1 center out of the center, and then I cut 2 on each side. But this is like a puzzle. So what we really need to do is label these strips 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way, when we go to put it back together, it'll go back together where it looks like the actual original panel. So we are ready to begin. So as I mentioned, what I did, instead of writing numbers and all, I just put 5 pins in piece 5, 4 in piece 4, and so on and so forth. So the first thing that I'm going to do is grab piece number 1. I know she's here somewhere. There we go. Let's set the others on the side. Now, according to my instructions over here, it says that I should sew a B1, which is the narrower B strips, 1 strip to the right hand side of pieces 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so that's what I'm going to do here to get it all, get the computer, all this stuff started up. We're going to be sewing with 1/4 inch seam allowance, right sides together. Now, to be honest, when it is a solid piece like I'm using here, sometimes it doesn't really matter what side you use. As you can see, it is the same on this side as it is on this side. Okay guys, I said I was going to time this, and I am, but I'm not going to count the time that I used to cut it, and I'll tell you why. I am a slow cutter. Oh, it takes forever to cut anything. Okay, so just make sure you start on the top, and make sure this one, like I said, didn't matter. You want to get your top lines matched up. If you want to pin. If you don't, you don't have to. I don't think we're going to have to pin on this one. I'm just going to make sure I start really good and square, and we are ready to begin sewing. So how I do this is I'm just going to line this up with the edge of my 1/4 inch. I'm going to just check it every so many inches, get it all lined up on that edge, and just let the sewing machine do its job and let it feed it through, so we don't have bunching or rippling or anything like that, okay? We can chain piece these 4 long pieces because, well, like I said, this is all just straight sewing. Okay guys, so when I get all these sewn and pressed, I'll be back and we will move to the next step. Okay guys, I'm back, and what I've done is I have sewn a B1 piece to the right side of panel piece A 1, 2, 3, 4, and all I'm doing here is I'm going to do a little quick finger press. Okay, we're going to sew one B2 fabric to the right hand side of fabric A5, and we're going to sew one B2 fabric to the left hand side of fabric A1, and that's what we're doing first. This has got 1 pin, so we're going to sew it to this side. Now I know a lot of people have those pins, and I'm thinking about getting me some of those just from having to do this, that have like the numbers on them. That would be like awesome. So on this one, we're going to sew it to the right hand side. So this will be sewn just like the original pieces. It'll just be wider. I have to tell you, we went to a flea market in Springfield, Missouri yesterday. It's an indoor garage sale, is what they call it. They have it every January. It's at the fairgrounds. And let me tell y'all something. They had this sewing machine cabinet. And if I only had the room for it. First of all, it was mid-century modern. I love mid-century modern. That is my favorite thing. This house is not mid-century modern, but 2 houses ago, I did have a mid-century modern home, and I loved it. Okay. And I would have one tomorrow if I could find one. The cabinet was mid-century modern. It was amazing. So like, it was all about mid-century modern feel and color and texture. But your sewing machine sat down in your cabinet like this, all nice and flat. And then the top that covered the sewing machine folded out flat. It went way behind the sewing machine. So it gave you about 3 foot past the sewing machine cover to catch your quilts. I haven't seen an older and I'm sure they made them, but I've never seen an older sewing machine cabinet that folded out to the back like that. And the lady only wanted $70 for it, and I thought it was a steal. But I had nowhere to put it in the sewing machinery. I'm gonna tell y'all, it was really, really hard to walk away from that. That was an amazing piece of furniture. Okay, I hope she sold it. I hope it went to a good home for her. All right, guys, so this is 5. It's only got 1 on it. The only one right now that should have more than 1 stripe on it, get this off there, oh, cupcake, is piece number 1, and it should have a wider piece, the panel, and a narrower piece. And that's where we're at. Okay, so this is pieces 1 and 2, and this is pieces 4 and 5. What I did was, I just pinned them on the corner where I need them to go together, okay? That way I won't get all mixed up. So now at this point, I will not need to worry about the pins any longer. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take them out, because I'm gonna go ahead and use my design board to keep putting things back up there so I don't get confused. If you don't have a design board, use bed. Use the floor if your floors are clean. My floors aren't always clean because of the dogs. Okay. Get all this flipped around here. And we're just going to sew 1/4 inch seam and keep it going. That's all we're doing. Making sure that edge is lined up nice and straight. Feeding it in. Let the sewing machine do what the sewing machine does. Now, if you don't happen to have a 1/4 inch foot, you could you could use this 1/4 inch seam tape. You can buy that most anywhere probably today. I know you can get it off of Amazon. But you can also just use several thicknesses of painter's tape, and that works really well if you use several thicknesses of painter's tape and make you a 1/4 inch edge on your sewing machine, and you can easily remove it if you want to. You don't have to go out and spend a lot of money, or masking tape, whatever you got. I mean, I guess you could use Scotch tape if you have that. Just whatever you have. You want your little barrier to help you feed it in an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. And just do it that way. There are a lot of YouTube videos out there on how to measure that accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. So just type that in, and you'll find somebody out there that'll show you just how to measure, and then you can get that. Don't think you have to go out and buy a 1/4 inch seam allowance foot if you don't have it and it's not in the budget to do so. Okay, so that's 1, 2, and this here on this side, but this is the top. So I'm going to take 4, 5 and push it to the side so I don't get confused. I'm going to take this panel here. Ooh, that's so pretty. See, when that starts shrinking down, it really looks nice. I like the navy. I know it may look black on camera. I'm not sure. I'm just going to finger press it. I finger pressed it to the wrong direction. I want to finger press everything toward, or press everything towards these center stripes, okay? So let me do that correctly. So you want to make sure that you open it up. Okay, I'm not stretching it, I'm just giving it a little pull as I'm going so the seam opens up. Okay, so there you go. So now I'm going to go grab piece number 3 and sew it to this piece, okay? Okay, so that is the third panel, the third piece of the panel cut out. Now we're ready to add the last piece to make it side. So now this one, just make sure you have the top to the top, because the wider piece should be all the way on the end, and you should have your top, and then this should sew right here next to this. So you always want to make sure when you're sewing it together, you've got that center piece gapping between it. That way you don't have to wonder if you're sewing it right. Okay guys, I'm pretty impressed. Most all my bottoms came out perfectly even. So it's all done here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go iron it and put it up on the design wall. We're gonna look at it. Then we'll set the top and the bottom on. Then we'll set this aside on the design wall for a while we make the second border. Because we're already, when we put these pieces on the ends, we've already put 2 sides of the first border on. Okay guys, so that's what she's looking like now that the 5 panels and the stripes have been added to the center. So the next step is to add a top and a bottom border to it. And then we'll hang it on the wall until we finish the next step. Just thought y'all might like a quick look. Okay, so I don't think it matters whether you sew the bottom or the top stripe on first. I think I've got the top one lined up here, but at this point it doesn't matter. Just double check yourself and make sure your border is long enough all the way across. I just checked mine, it is. And I'm gonna lay it up here, matching my corners. There are no seams to match, so it's just still straight line sewing, okay? Now I do have these seams here pressed towards the dark. So as I'm sewing along, I will make sure that those seams are still going in the correct direction, that they did not get twisted as I'm going along here. But we can do first one end and then the other end. We don't have to stop and press first. Okay guys, so that is the edges all done. I'm going to take it to the ironing board now. So we at like, not quite, right at 55 minutes. I mean, an hour and 5 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and take this to the ironing board. Iron is flat. I'm going to put it up on the design wall. Then we're going to start laying out what we need for our edges. Okay? Okay guys, so that's the center of the quilt all put back together. And the first border is installed. Now we're going to begin working on the second border. So I think that really turned out quite nice. I'm well pleased with that. We're going to sew on some straight borders. And I chose the darker rusty color. I tried the light color and I just really didn't like it because those square borders are a little darker than I thought they were. So anyway, this is what we're going to use. Now, my fabric wasn't long enough, so I had to piece them. Okay, so I just did that diagonal piecing like you do to extend your binding. I did the same thing for my border. And so you really can't really hardly even tell that it's pieced there. And if you can, well, it doesn't really matter to me. If you would not want it pieced, you'd have to buy more yardage. I'm not going to include yardage in the fact of not having to piece it because, well, it just doesn't make sense to me at this point whenever you're just doing a basic strip quilt to spend an extra $5, $8, $10 on some fabric whenever you could just piece one corner. So we're not going to do that. All right, guys, so I'm going to start this. So I'm at the top, and it looks like I'm down by the end of it by stripe 5. These borders are too long. I just made my borders too long, so I didn't have to be aggravated with myself. The pattern has the right measurement on it. So we're just going to simply start this at the top, and we're going to sew down both sides. We will press to the outside. We will sew on the top and bottom. We will press to the outside. Then we will be ready to sew the other borders on there. So right now, we are at 2 hours, okay? So we're at a 2-hour mark. As you can see, it's quite a bit longer than it should be, but I'm okay with that. All right, so I'm gonna turn this around. We're gonna put it on the other side. Then I will take it, trim it, press it. So to make the outside border, you will need to sew 16 sets of blocks C, D, E, and F. Once you sew those 16 sets, you will divide them up into 4 sets of 4 blocks each. You'll be sewing the blocks vertically. That will give you a total of 4 borders of 16 blocks each. You will take one border and sew to the right side, one border and sew to the left side. Press them toward the inner border, then you can sew the top border and the bottom border from that point. I'm ready to go here. This is, I'm going to put the 2 sides, the left and right side on. And we're going to get this done. I have them well pinned. Now, I have them pinned in enough where I should not have to pull the pins as I go. I probably will stop every once in a while and pull some of the pins. I won't pull that one because that helps keep the whole thing straight as I go. But this was a little different for me to do this one. So now oops, see how it flips up sometimes? Just flip it down. Okay guys, so I'm going to remove the rest of the pins, turn it around, sew up the other side, press it. Okay, so I have the top and the bottom now pinned in place. So it's just the same thing, just going to sew slowly down each side and then we'll get it pressed. I did press toward the G fabric instead of towards the outside. I just felt like it laid better that direction. Now, you may be making different decisions, and when you do, yours might be, you know, you might want to press in the other direction. It just depends on which way your fabric really wants to lay down, is which way you want to press. I did flip this seam. I'll have to give that a little press so that these would nest on this corner here. Alright guys, that is it for the sewing. Whew! A lot of sewing in one day. All right, so I'm going to get this ironed. I'll put it up on the design wall and we'll have a look at it. Well, here's our finished version of the quilt. I think that we'll use a darker binding on this one too. I don't think I'll go back to the lighter binding like I was thinking I would. If y'all have any suggestions on the binding, please leave them in the comments below. If you would like a copy of this pattern, it is available in my Etsy store, Be Yourself Quilting. Also, if you enjoyed just listening and being along with me, please like, share, and subscribe this video. And go to my Facebook and leave a comment there and leave a comment below. And I appreciate everyone so very much who participates and shares my videos and just watches me every week. You are a great blessing to me. So everybody, until next week, I'll see y'all. And I hope you have a very, very blessed week. And remember, always be yourself.